Okay, welcome to Word Without Walls. Welcome to the Wednesday night sunlight service. This is Love, part 38. And I'm really pretty excited about this sermon tonight. Obviously I'm going to talk about love, as I always do, as we have been for the whole year of love. But when I was getting ready to prepare this message for tonight, I asked Logan, I said, Logan, I'm going to preach about love, but what should I talk about? And Logan said, the heart, of course. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about the heart. And specifically, we're going to look at Proverbs 4:23, and we're going to look at guarding or keeping our heart, and we're going to look at what in the upside down, back to front economy of the kingdom, what that means. Because I have a TV show that I really like, and one of the themes of that show was you must make your heart steel, as in you must protect yourself, you must make yourself hard so nothing can get at you. And while I like the show, I didn't like that idea, because I don't think we're supposed to have a hard heart. I don't think we're supposed to make our heart steel. I don't think we're supposed to protect ourselves from the heart or the matters of the heart, or again, as it says in Proverbs, the issues of the heart. Well, let me read Proverbs and then we'll get into this. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23. In the King James Version it reads, "Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life." And that always seemed important to me, that God wants us to know that the issues of life, the important things in life, they come out of the heart. And I've said it many times like this: to live is to love, and to love is to live. And we saw during this study at some point, we saw that not only is living, loving, but love is life. So of course the issues of life come out of the heart. And that's why we need to keep our hearts with all diligence. We need to listen to our heart, if I can say it that way. And I've always thought this too: if love never fails, then the safest place you can be is following your heart. Okay, because that's where love comes from. That's why, that's where Logan connected love to the heart. And that's where I tell him, that's where God lives. That's where Jesus lives. That's where love lives. He lives in your heart. He's inside and he comes out. But now look at this in the Amplified Version. Proverbs 4:23 reads, "Keep and guard your heart with all vigilance, and above all that you guard. For out of it flow the springs of life." Which again, we could go straight to Jesus' words when he talks about, rivers of living water flowing out of our belly, one translation says, or our innermost being, I believe another translation says. So again, what we understand is what's inside flows out of us. And so to me, keeping and guarding our hearts, it doesn't mean putting up a wall and not letting things in and out. It means, as we're going to see, it means instead the exact opposite. Keeping and guarding your heart, or again, keeping your heart with all diligence, it doesn't mean closing up. It doesn't mean closing down. It means opening up. And as we're going to see tonight, that's what it means to keep and guard your heart. It means to open your heart. It means to be open to love in all its different dimensions, in all its different forms. And that took me to Matthew chapter 5, verse 8. And Jesus says, in the King James, they're the red letters, Jesus' words, Matthew 5:8 says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." And I kind of think this is one of those times, and I think Jesus did this a lot, where he wasn't telling us a formula for something. He wasn't giving us an if-then statement. He wasn't saying, if you're pure in heart, then you'll see God. I think he was telling us, in fact, how to see God. And we see God because we have a pure heart. That's the only way you can see God, because God is love. And the only way that you can see love, as we saw last week, is with the eyes of grace, is with a pure heart. And that's why those are blessed. So again, it's not about guarding your heart in the sense of keeping things in, or keeping things out, or keeping people out, or it's not about making your heart steel. And listen, when I first heard that line in that TV show, I really liked it, because I think we've all experienced heartache in our lives. And I've been through my fair share. And what I've kind of learned is I don't think a heart can break. I think it's too strong for that, but I know a heart can ache. So sometimes it's easy to want to put that wall up, to want to guard your heart, to want to make it steel and not let anything in, and what's in there, not let it out. Especially when I think a lot of us, we think of love as something that if we give love away and we don't get anything back, like we feel like if I give it away and I don't get anything back, I won't have anything. When the truth of the matter is, we are connected to the source. Okay, we are so full of God, of God's Spirit, of God's love, of the God who is love, that the only thing that happens when we give it away is that there's room for more of it in our own lives. Okay, that's why I say in order to receive it and release it, that's why I always say the best way to receive it is by releasing it. Because then you make room for more, because you give away what you've got. You don't end up with nothing, because He's always filling us. I always come back to this, but it's that picture of the latter rain and the former rain, and the latter rain came first. Because He poured Himself out on us, and He gave us everything we had, and we have an inexhaustible supply. We can't the more we give it away, the more of it we have. We can't get rid of it. And really, when we understand what true love is all about, we understand that we're not giving it away at all, but we're sharing it. We're laying our lives down, we're giving ourselves to others. We're presenting our bodies as a living sacrifice, not a sacrifice that dies, but a sacrifice that lives. So again, when we see guarding and keeping our heart, what that really means is we guard our heart by keeping it pure, by seeing God in everything and in everybody. Okay, not by closing it off, but by opening it up. And that to me truly is how to keep it. How to keep it with all diligence. Okay, because if we're diligent about our hearts, that means we're focused on our heart. And if we're focused on our heart, not from the perspective of, I need to keep it safe, but from the perspective of, this is what's important, this is what I have, and I'm going to let it flow, then what we understand is what we have is enough. Then what we understand is what we have overflows out of us. And we couldn't keep it in, really, if we tried to, because it's too big. It's too strong, it's too powerful. It's too glorious and too holy and too pure and too perfect to keep to ourselves. And then I was really kind of thinking about, because again, I was talking to Logan about this. He's only 4, but sometimes I think I have some of my best theological conversations with Logan. I was just thinking about, what do we talk about the most in our lives? One of two things. The things that make us the happiest and the things that make us the saddest. Those are the things that we always tend to focus on. It's never really the middle stuff, but it's always one extreme or the other. And I think that's where the diligence comes in. I think that's where setting our affection on things above and not on things of the earth comes in. I think that's where, counting our blessings, focusing on what we have, which really, when you understand what we have, there's nothing else to focus on. Because we have it all. He did it all so we could get it all. And the all that He did was the cross. And the all that we got was Him. Okay, we have been blessed with all spiritual blessings in the heavenly Christ. We have been given all things that pertain to life and godliness. So when we really start looking at the things we have, we find that we have no lack. We find that just like in the story of the prodigal son, the older son, his dad said, "You've been with me this whole time and everything I have is yours." And again, that's what I always try to teach Logan. And that's why I can never finish a meal by myself, because he knows if it's mine, it's his. And if it's something he wants to eat, he knows he can just partake of it. And that's the same way our Father is. He's given us His divine nature for us to partake of. Not to beg for, not to work for, not to earn, but to receive and to release. And the thing of it is, again, is you can't receive and release the gift of God unless your heart is open to love. If you're guarding it in the sense of keeping things in and keeping things out, then you're going to miss out on what Jesus did. You're going to miss out on the gift that we've been given. And really that's what it says in, I only have 2 verses left, Song of Solomon, chapter 5, verse 2. I always try to be careful with Song of Solomon, because if I would just keep reading it, because I love it. It's such a beautiful, song, I guess, really, but I just wanted to read one verse tonight. Song of Solomon, chapter 5, verse 2. It says, "I sleep, but my heart waketh. It is the voice of my beloved that knocketh, saying, Open to me, my sister, my love, my dove, my undefiled. For my head is filled with dew, and my locks with the drops of the night. Your heart is awake. Okay, remember all those verses? And last year I preached on this a lot about awake to righteousness and sin not. We may be sleeping sometimes, but our heart is awake. Okay? So even when it feels like you're sleepwalking through life, there's something deep inside that's always ready, always resonant, always full of that love of God. Okay, but again, it's what's inside. Sometimes it's buried down deep. Sometimes even though your heart's awake, it feels like you're sleeping or sleepwalking or going through the motions. And my pastor says, you know what a rut is? A rut is just a grave with the ends kicked out. If you're stuck in a rut, you're not really living. Even though your heart's awake, you may be sleeping. And remember what Jesus said. He said, I come to wake them from sleep. He didn't come to make quote-unquote evil people quote-unquote good. He came to make dead people alive. He came to wake us from sleep. And look, our heart's already awake. There's always something inside of us that's longing for something. And of course, if the deep calls out to the deep, what else could our heart long for but love? Okay, again, even Logan knows that. The heart is connected directly to love. And out of the heart are the issues of life. Or again, as the Amplified says, out of it flow the springs of life. There's something inside just waiting to burst its way out. And there it is, he knocks at the door, saying, open to me. He knocks at the heart. Okay? And that's my last verse. We'll go ahead and read it before we really get into this. Revelation chapter 3, verse 20. Jesus says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him, and he with me. So if we know that Jesus is the door to the sheepfold, and if we know that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, he is the Father, the exact perfect representation of the Father, if we know that Jesus is love, then I think it's safe to say that this door, it's the heart. And again, that's what we see in Song of Solomon. We sleep, but the heart's awake. And then he knocks. And it doesn't say he knocks on the door, it just says he knocks. I think he's knocking on the heart. Because I think the heart is the door. I think the heart is the door to everything. Okay, I think if we would stop trying so hard to figure everything out. Listen, how can you have a peace that passes understanding if you're so focused on trying to understand everything? How can you have a knowledge that passes knowledge, which is the love of Christ, if all you care about is head knowledge? Okay, a lot of people know about God, but it's so much more important to know God, to have a relationship. And that's why Jesus came as a son and drew us into himself so that we could experience God as a father. With that pure, unconditional love that a father has for his son. So that we would know that Daddy's never going to leave us or forsake us. So that we would know that Daddy's got us covered. Daddy's got our back. He's providing for us. He's protecting us. I don't have to protect myself because he is my protection. Remember when we preached about him being our shield, our fortress, our place of refuge? Okay, we don't have to protect ourselves. We don't have to guard our hearts in the sense of keeping our hearts safe. Okay, because that's who Daddy is. When we guard our heart, when we keep our heart, it's not about shutting it down, it's about opening it up. It's about Jesus standing at the door and knocking and having something so much better available and presenting it to us. Okay, didn't he make a table for us in the presence of our enemies? And didn't he ring the dinner bell? Don't the Spirit and the bride say, come? They don't say come or else, they say come and get it. They say if you want something better, here it is. If you want a more excellent way, it's love. But again, how can we understand love? Only through the heart. Only through the Holy Spirit, which is our love receptor. Only through opening up. And look at what he says here back in Song of Solomon. I love this so much. He says, open to me, my sister, my love, my dove, my undefiled. He says, I'm not scary, I'm not mean, I'm not mad at you, I'm mad about you. I'm crazy in love with you and you need to open up and let me in. I'm not here to condemn you. Jesus said, I haven't come to condemn the world. I'm here to save the world. I'm not here to judge people. The Father has committed all judgment to the Son. And the Father judged the Son righteously and accepted the Son's sacrifice and lifted the Son back up to life. And because Jesus had drawn all of us into himself when he was lifted up from the earth, okay, when he died, we died. When he was judged, we were judged. When he was raised back up, we were raised back up. And again, that's why he stands at the door and knocks. Okay? He is the door. So really he's knocking on himself. Spirit to spirit, holy to holy, deep calls out to deep. There's a connection there. Okay? The heart is the door. When you open the door to love, then you can experience true, everlasting, eternal, abundant resurrection life. Because if to live is to love, unless, you know what I believe it's John writes about, if you don't love, you abide in death. Okay? You're asleep, but your heart's awake. Okay? And if you want to open that up, if you want something better, this is it. This is where it comes from. This is how it comes. You guard your heart by opening it up to love. Not by worrying about being vulnerable. Not by worrying about giving away what you got and not having anything left. That's why it's so important to understand that perfect love casts out fear. We don't have to be afraid of God. And we don't have to be afraid of each other. And we don't have to be afraid of losing what we've got. We don't have to be afraid of anything. We can just simply love because we are loved. We can just simply receive it and release it. We can just simply open the door and then he'll sup with us. Then he'll eat with us at that table that he prepared for us. Okay, he did all the heavy lifting. He did all the work. And we get to enjoy the fruit of his labor. And what's the fruit of his labor? The fruit of the Spirit, which is love. We looked at that for weeks and weeks. The fruit of the Spirit is love. What he has for us is love. And remember, I think I started this, I know I've preached on this a lot, I ranted on this a lot. When we see in the Bible the term God is love, the word love there, it literally means a love feast. It literally means what we eat, because you know you are what you eat. Okay, so if you're closed down to love and you're eating bitterness and you're eating sadness and you're eating anger, then that's what you're going to focus on. That's what you're going to talk about. You're not going to speak life because you're not going to experience life. And again, that just goes around and around. If you speak it, you'll experience it. And if you experience it, you'll speak it. Why do you think the Bible says, taste and see that the love is good, that the Lord is good? Okay, God's not afraid to show himself faithful. Where do you think our faith comes from? It comes from hearing. And hearing comes from the Word, Jesus, love of God. So he does it all and gives it to us all. And he says, try this, take it, eat of it, have it. I'm knocking on the door. Open your heart. Let this love inside and you'll be so filled with it that it'll overflow naturally. And not only will it get all over you in the process, but it'll get all over everybody you come into contact with. And again, I think that's the thing about being a lighthouse. Okay, a lighthouse doesn't move. A lighthouse doesn't run around looking for darkness. The lighthouse just, wherever it is, it just shines the light. And it shines it in all directions. And the light keeps the ships safe. Okay, that love that we have because he gave it to us, that we can then give to one another, it's a safe thing. It's a safe place. It's that refuge. Okay, so how do we keep our heart safe? By closing it down, by shutting it down, by making it steal and keeping everybody out? No. By opening it up and sharing it. And again, being vulnerable can be scary. I mean, really it can. Because you might face some rejection. You might get people who do not want to buy what you're selling. And guess what? That's okay. Remember, I think it was Ezekiel, one of the prophets, God told, go tell them what I say, and they're not going to believe you. They're not going to listen to you. Do it anyway. And that's how I feel about love. That's why at the end of the sermon I say I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. My love is not based on your response to it. My love is based on my response to God loving me. My love for you is based on me being so full of it. Again, full of love, not full of it. My love is based on being full of love to the point where I couldn't keep it in if I wanted to. And again, I know some people think I'm full of it, but really it's love that I'm full of because I've opened my heart to it. Because I heard him. Remember when John, the Apostle John, remember when he put his head on Jesus' breast and he heard the heartbeat of God? And that gave him such a strong revelation for him to even then go and write the book of Revelation. And look at what John talks about in all his letters. He talks about love because he heard the heartbeat of God. Because he heard God knocking on the door and he answered. He answered. He opened the door. Okay? So again, we don't have to guard our hearts in the sense of keeping our heart safe. Our heart is safe. The heart is tough. Okay? The heart beats from the minute you start living until the minute you stop living. And you know, different medical things, whatever. I'm not a doctor. Sometimes it might, you know, jump or whatever or stop. I'm saying it's strong and it lasts your whole life. Okay? Because when it stops, you stop. So don't worry about the heart. Don't worry about being vulnerable. Don't worry about putting yourself out there. I read the other day, why not go out on a limb? That's where the fruit is. And again, that's who we are. We're the branches, and He's the vine, and we're connected to the source, and we can't run out. Because for us to run out, He would have to run out. And how can He run out when He doesn't just have love, but He is love? Okay, that's what the more excellent way is. That's who Jesus is. Jesus is God in the flesh, love in a body. God in our flesh, love in our body. That's why I can say that we are Jesus. That's why I can say that He's our true identity. That's why I can say, Daddy loves me. I'm His beloved Son, in whom He is well pleased. And when I know that I'm His beloved Son, and when I know that He's well pleased with me, then I have no fear to open the door. Then I can hear Him knocking, and I can say, please come in, because I've been waiting for you, just like you've been waiting for me. I've been looking for love in all the wrong places, and now I finally found it because it found me. Okay, and not in the sense that we were lost to God. He always knew where we were. He was always right there with us. But more like Adam and Eve, sometimes we hide ourselves from the presence of God. Sometimes we cut ourselves off because we think all these silly things like God's going to punish us, or like God's mad at us, or like God's out to get us. Guys, on the cross, God got us. Okay, He's a happy God because He got everything He wanted. All throughout the Old Testament of the Bible, He says over and over and over again, I want to be your people, and I want you to be my, I want you to be my people, and I want to be your God. That was the cry of His heart the whole entire time. And then when you get to the book of Revelation, He says, now you are my people, and now I am your God. Now I don't just dwell with you, now I don't just dwell among you, now I dwell in you. Now I dwell through you, now I dwell as you. In Him we live and move and have our being. In us He lives and moves and has His being. So again, it's not about being afraid. It's not about protecting ourselves. The heart can take care of itself. The heart knows what it knows. And remember, a couple of weeks ago we talked about how this isn't new, but it's the oldest thing there is. It's a renewal of what came first, of in the beginning. In the beginning God spoke and He said, let there be light. Okay? So love, again, Jesus, Alpha and Omega, beginning and end. It starts with love, it ends with love, and when you're open to it, it's everything in between. So keeping our heart, guarding our heart, that doesn't mean shutting it down, it means opening it up. Because how if the springs of life are supposed to flow out of it, how could we then shut it up and expect that to be what God wants for us? Okay, how can something flow if we're shutting it down? That's not guarding anything. That's not helping anything. That's not protecting anything. That's hurting you and everybody else. Because if you shut your heart down, again, that I think we talk about, dwell on, focus on either the really good or the really bad. And if we shut down the really good, what's left? But if we focus on the really good, it squeezes everything else out because it's so big. Okay? I talk about Logan more than I talk about anything because I love him more than I love anything. And I talk about Jesus. When I talk about Jesus, it always comes back to love. I'm pretty sure every rant series that I write on Jesus Rant, at least in one of, I usually do 5-part series. In at least one of the series I say, hey, guess what? It's all about love. Because it is. And that's all I can't get past that. And you can't get past what you can't get past. Okay? And God's love is not something that we can or should want to get past. That should be where we live. That should be where we dwell. Because that's who He is, and He dwells in us. He lives in us. So again, according to Logan, what should I talk about when I talk about love? The heart, of course. And what do we do with the heart? We don't close it down. We open it up. He stands at the door and knocks. We sleep, but our heart's awake. And if we would just line everything up with that, how many times have I said it? The only true way for me and you to line up is if I line up with God and you line up with God, then we'll line up with each other automatically. And then all that other stuff will just fade away and it won't even matter. Okay, write major on the major, minor on the minor. See what's important, know what's important, focus on what's important. Set your affections on things above, set it there. Keep your heart with all diligence. Okay? Don't worry about it. If listen, your heart's not going to lead you astray when you're open to love, because love never fails. Now again, you have to understand what love is trying to accomplish, and you have to understand that love already accomplished what it set out to do. You can't say, I'm going to love somebody and they're going to love me back, because that's not true. That's not what love is trying to accomplish. So if you think, if I love you, you'll love me back, then from your perspective, love may quote-unquote fail. But if you understand that love is about giving and not about getting, if you understand that for love to accomplish its purpose, all I have to do is love you, period, no matter what your response is, then you understand that love never fails. Then you understand that following your heart is the safest place to be. Then you understand how to keep and guard your heart. Then you understand that the pure in heart are the ones that see God. It's not be pure in heart and then see God. It's because you're pure in heart, you see Him. What else could you see with a pure heart? What else could you see with the eyes of grace? So, I don't know I lost track of time, but that's what I have for this week. I was very excited about it. I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you for all of the support. Thank you for your attendance and sharing the videos and the books and the rants and helping me get the word out there. I appreciate you, I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Amen.